Hi, welcome. Welcome to my house, and here I am teaching. I'm happy to be with you. We are on week 1, as the screen says, of our study. We're looking at Proverbs 1 and 2, and I have put the key for the morning, and the key is follow the wisdom road. Let me open in prayer. Father, help us to follow the wisdom road this morning, to stay on your path of wisdom. Father, show us this morning through your word what that looks like. And in your precious and powerful name we pray. Amen. As I was thinking about our lesson this morning, it reminded me of the Wizard of Oz. I just couldn't help but think about the Wizard of Oz. I kept getting that saying in my head, follow the yellow brick road. You see, a tornado, you remember the story, don't you? A tornado had dropped Dorothy and her dog Toto in this strange land of Oz. And all Dorothy wanted, all she wanted to know was, how do I get home? I want to go home. And so Dorothy, in the movie, in the story, she ends up asking these little munchkins how she gets home, and they tell her to go to the wizard, go to the palace, go and ask the Wizard of Oz how she can get home. And so they tell her, follow the yellow brick road all the way, and the wizard will tell her how to get home. Now, along the path, Dorothy meets all sorts of people. Some good, some bad, some help her travel the yellow brick road, and others are a distraction to the yellow brick road and her getting home. So there are dangers that lurked on the yellow brick road, and that would keep her from getting home, that would delay her. And you know, it's kind of true for us. All of us want to get home, don't we? All of us have a desire to get home, but how we get there is another matter. And so, like Dorothy, we want to follow the yellow brick road. There are things that distract us, bad advice that comes along the road and promises things for us, and voices that tell us to follow different roads. So let's follow the yellow brick road like Dorothy and see where the road begins, how to stay on the road, and how to get to our final destination, home. So as we look through this chapter, I want us to think about a couple things. I want us to see how we follow the wisdom road as we look through the chapter. So open your Bibles and look at chapter 1, Proverbs 1, and let's look at the first 6 verses. How do we follow the wisdom road? Well, the first thing, verse 1, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction. You see, Proverbs, looking at the book of Proverbs, the whole theme of the book of Proverbs is to know wisdom. We are going to go to the school of wisdom. Proverbs is the school of wisdom. And so it's giving us a summary here in these first 6 verses. And as we progress down the road or through the school of wisdom, look at the verbs here. To know wisdom, to discern the sayings, to receive instruction, to give prudence, to understand a proverb. You see, the school of wisdom is hands-on learning. It's full of action. And look at all of the facets of the word wisdom, all of the dimensions of wisdom. It's like a rainbow to the word of wisdom. It has many colors, many dimensions. Look at it. Wisdom. There are synonyms here of the word wisdom: instruction, understanding, prudence, knowledge, discretion, learning, and counsel. All these words are seen in the first 6 verses. See, what do you need to learn? What part do you need to learn in the school of wisdom? Now, what is the method or the style of instruction in this school? See, the method of learning are these Proverbs. It says these are the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Now, Solomon wrote most of these Proverbs, but not all of them. And we'll look at those as we go through it. So the Proverbs are the method of learning. He uses these Proverbs, which are short sayings, little nuggets of truth. And sometimes they're quite graphic, even humorous. Or it says in verse 6, they're written in a riddle. There's a bit of a mystery to them. And these Proverbs written down for us are, they ignite our imagination and our interest. And so I like it. They're short and sweet, and yet they're going to stick with us. So what's the target age for this school of wisdom? What's the target age? It says in verse 4 to give prudence to the naive. That naive is the simple person, the untaught person. So Proverbs are for them. That is for them. And also it says to the youth. So Proverbs are for the teenagers, for the youth, for those that are inexperienced. And I love this in verse 5. It says the Proverbs are for a wise man will hear and increase in learning. So Proverbs are even for the wise to increase in learning. They're for the already mature in wisdom. So you're never too old for gaining wisdom. And as long as you are living, you can continue to grow in wisdom. So Proverbs, this school of wisdom, is going to set us on a godly road, the wisdom road for us to do all of life. Now let's look next at how we follow the wisdom road in verse 7. Verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. You see, the start to wisdom, the starting point of the wisdom road is the fear of the Lord. See, if you don't start in the right place, then you will not end up at the right place. And it's not merely a method or a thought, but it's a right relationship. You see, the wisdom road begins with a right relationship with the Lord. This is where you start. This is first and foremost to the wisdom road, a relationship with God. It begins with faith. Now, this wisdom, this relationship with God is not dominated by fear or dread. No, the fear of the Lord, what this means is it's a reverent obedience. A reverent obedience. It includes worship, but that's not all. It is standing in awe of someone so that your everyday conduct would not grieve or dishonor that person. You see, if you are in relationship and it is reverent obedience, then you would see every moment on this road as the Lord's time. You would see every relationship on this road as the Lord's opportunity. You would see every duty, every work on this road as a command to serve him with joy. And you would see every blessing on the road as a gift from God. You see, this is what it means to fear the Lord. You know, the interesting thing is, even though this is the starting point, we never leave this stage of the road. It is the controlling principle of the wisdom road. How do we follow the wisdom road? Now let's look at this next section. And before we do, I want to ask you something about what we were just talking about. Like, how are you doing in regards to the wisdom road, to fearing the Lord as your starting place? I mean, do you have that kind of relationship, reverent obedience, where your concern is not dread, but it is my life honoring to the Lord? Is what I do, is the way that I conduct my life grieving the Lord? And is everything in my life bringing honor to the Lord? And I want to make sure I haven't left wisdom behind. Started there, but then forgot wisdom. Now, as we look at this next section, you see it starts with, "Hear, my son, your father's instruction." See verse 8. "Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching." So this is one of the many speeches we are going to see that Solomon gives to his son about wisdom, about staying on the wisdom road. And so Solomon is just like you and I are as parents. He's concerned, he's passionate to lead his children on the wisdom road. You see, this is the first thing that we learn here, that wise parents are going to teach them about the wisdom road. And it's interesting, I find, that in modern culture today, it seems a prevalent thought that we should just let our children choose the road. And right away, we see at the School of Wisdom that Solomon is saying, listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. It's implying that Solomon is teaching his children. You see, the family is the primary mechanism that God uses for training children. It's the fundamental training ground for growth, for his people, for his children. And so this is really important. And Solomon is showing that it is the parents' responsibility, both the mother and the father, to instruct, to teach their children about the wisdom road. You see, if you are not very intentional, you need to be intentional about instructing your children. It takes effort, it takes planning, it takes sacrifice. And if you don't teach them, somebody or something else will. Wise parents teach their children. And it's interesting that right after Solomon talks about the fear of the Lord, the next thing he is saying is, children, listen to your parents. You see, this is how we follow the wisdom road. Follow the good influence, the good instructions, the good teaching of your parents. And that's what he is saying here. Now, Solomon is showing that there are dangers on this road. And he starts out right away telling his son there are dangers on the road. And the first thing that he is saying is they need to avoid following bad friends. Verse 10, if sinners entice you, do not consent. So he wants to spare his son the heartache of choosing the wrong path by following the wrong friends. I think as parents, we understand this. We all have had the same concern. We understand that walking with the wrong crowd leads to the wrong choices and the wrong road. So Solomon is saying, do not consent. Just say no. Just say no. And in fact, on verse 15, he says, my son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your feet from their path. Don't even put your toe on that path. Don't experiment with it. Mark Twain says, it's easier to stay out than to get out. Isn't that true? It's easier to stay out than get out. And that's what Solomon is warning. Stay away from the influence of bad friends. And Solomon gives, this is a good parenting tip. Not only does he warn them and tell them to avoid this, but he gives a motive to walk this way, to stay away from them. In verse 9, he says, indeed, these instructions, these teachings, they're a graceful wreath to your head and ornaments about your neck. See, the wisdom road, following the wisdom road, following the good influence of your parents' instructions will produce character in you, will produce honor. Just like a wreath around your head, an ornament around your neck would show in the days of Solomon that you were a person of honor, a person of character, a person of position. So Solomon is giving an incentive to obey. And then in verses going on here, in verses 11 to 16, as you read this, you're kind of wondering, I don't think I'm going to follow these bad influence, right? They seem pretty bad. Like, they're sinners. They always have malice on their mind. And it says they lie in wait for blood. They're violent and they ambush the innocent. They're on a power trip. And in verse 13, they'll find all kinds of precious wealth and we will fill our houses with spoil. They're greedy. They're stealers. And it goes on, their feet run to evil. They shed blood. I mean, what is attractive? It doesn't seem like anybody would follow that path. Why would anybody? And Solomon tells his son right away in verse 10, it's enticing. This path is enticing. It is a quick route of excitement and power. And all over the place it says, let us, come with us. There is this feeling that you will be part of them, that you're one of the gang, right? That there is an acceptance. And so it looks enticing and exciting, and you want that group acceptance and identity. You know, you might think that's just for the young at heart or the youthful, and it really isn't. If you ask yourself, we understand this is not just for the young. All of us desire to be accepted and to be part of a group and to be known. So have you ever noticed that people do all sorts of things, different things, when they're part of a group that they would never do if they were individuals? You might ask yourself, are there some bad influences in your life that are moving you off the wisdom road, that are having you make wrong decisions and wrong choices? You are doing things just to be one of the gang. You see, the other thing about a parent, not only do they tell you, motivate you to obey, but they also tell you the consequences, right? Bad influences, unsound friendships lead to disaster. So you see it here in verse 17. It's a trap that even a bird doesn't go to. And it's an ambush for their own lives. Verse 18 and 19 show us that you end up only harming yourself. And verse 19, it takes away the life of its possessors. It's not the best life. It destroys life. It destroys the good life. And so it leads to disaster. Let's look at this next section. How to follow the wisdom road. In this next section, wisdom is pictured, personified as a woman. Wisdom shouts in the street. She lifts her voice in the square. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the gates in the city, she utters her saying. You see, you're getting the point. The point of this imagery is that wisdom invites everyone to come and learn from her. Wisdom is not hidden. It's available to all people. And it's not whispering. Look at the words there. She shouts. She lifts her voice. She cries out. She utters her sayings of wisdom. She's a public figure. It's for everyone. Everyone hears it. Her claims of wisdom are bold, and she's calling everyone to learn from her and to follow the wisdom road. Now, the rest of this passage here, the verses 22 through 23, tell you, don't turn a deaf ear to Lady Wisdom. I mean, you know how children do it. They do it like this. I can't hear you. Right? That's what she's saying. Don't turn a deaf ear to wisdom. Do you have a deaf ear to wisdom? Is there some area in your life that you are doing this? I can't hear you. And she goes on, wisdom says, how long, O naive one, foolish one, another word for a fool. How long, scoffer, you fool? How long, you fools? How many weeks, how many months, how many years will you not listen to me? How long do you plan on rejecting wisdom? And she shows you here in this next part that the fool, everyone coming by the street, everyone has had a chance to hear wisdom. Verse 24, because I called and you refused. I stretched out my hand and no one paid attention, and you neglected all my counsel, and you did not want my reproof. And in verse 29, because they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord. You see, at the bottom of not listening is they chose. Look at the word there. They chose not to fear the Lord. They decided themselves against wisdom's starting point, against wisdom's top priority. See, how about you? Are you teachable? Do you hear wisdom's words of reproof? Are you paying attention? Have you neglected its counsel? You know, I think it's really hard to be corrected. Most of us don't like it. And as we see here, the fool is just following their own affections, their own choices. 4 times it says that the word come. Look here. What are the consequences of neglecting and ignoring wisdom and turning a deaf ear to wisdom? You see, ignoring wisdom leads to calamity. 4 times we see the word come in verse 26 through 27. You see, the point in repeating that is that the bad things might not happen. They are assured to happen. They will come. And we see here the consequences cannot be avoided. Wisdom's consequences are going to come like a storm of judgment. We see it comes in a whirlwind. It's calamity and dread and distress and anguish to all those who turn a deaf ear, to ignore God's invitation of wisdom. You even see, it says in verse 26, I will also laugh at your calamities. It is not heartless laughter. It's comical. Like, why would you refuse or neglect or not listen to wisdom? Ignoring wisdom leads to calamity. And verse 32 says, for the waywardness of the fool, the waywardness for turning away from the path of wisdom and being complacent, that is not listening. You're complacent. You're plodding down your own path, your own affections, and ignoring, acting complacent, unaware of where it's leading. And these are your choices, your fate, your fault. As verse 31 says, you shall eat the fruit of their own way and be satiated with their own devices. You see, they have eaten the consequences of their own choices. In verse 28, it says, they will call on me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me. There is a sadness here to lost opportunity. Wisdom is speaking, and there's a moment to heed its advice, its word. Like if wisdom was saying to you as a mom, you need to spend more time with your children. You need to instruct them more on the ways of God. And you weren't listening, you turned a deaf ear, you may lose that opportunity. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you understand? Ignoring wisdom leads to calamity and perhaps a lost opportunity. Now, what if you're saying as you're listening to this, oh my goodness, maybe I got off and I wasn't listening to wisdom, and I want to turn. I want to come back and listen to wisdom. I want to follow the wisdom road. And I love this, verse 23. It says, turn to my reproof. Listen to my corrections, and I will pour out my spirit on you, and I will make my words known to you. You see, don't delay for a minute. Return to the wisdom road, and wisdom will be poured out. There's a sense of abundance there. It will be poured out. Your heart will be changed, and the words of wisdom will teach you and guide you and instruct you on the wisdom road. Don't delay returning to wisdom. Verse 33 says, but he who listens to me, who listens to wisdom, shall live securely and will be at ease from the dread of evil. Happy is the heart that listens to wisdom. It lives at ease. It lives with peace. It lives secure, without anxiety, without dread, without anguish in your heart. Happy is the heart who lives and listens to wisdom. Now let's go to chapter 2 and look here at how do we follow the wisdom road. And we can see we have another speech. Solomon is giving another speech to his son, instructing his son on wisdom. My son, he starts out. And we're going to see here, I want you to see the verb after verb Solomon gives his son to applying himself now to getting wisdom. Look at it with me. My son, if you will receive my word, if you will receive my word. Let's put the welcome mat out for wisdom. If you will treasure my commandments within you, in your heart. If you will make your ear attentive, listen to wisdom. Incline your heart to understanding. Cry for discernment. Lift your voice for understanding. Verse 4, seek her as silver. Search for her as hidden treasure. You see, Solomon is saying here that wisdom must be pursued actively and diligently. Pursue wisdom with all effort here that these verbs are showing you. You see, the pursuit of wisdom doesn't come naturally to us. It's not our default mechanism or setting. We have to seek it and search for it like hidden treasure and silver. It demands great effort. And this also shows us that wisdom is priceless, like a treasure. God's wisdom is priceless, and it demands our dedication and our hard work. What do you search for like that? Seek diligently like that. God is saying wisdom is worth it. It's priceless. You know, some people ask me, how do you do your lesson? And this is what I do. I do all these verbs. It's hard work. I seek after it. I search after it. I receive it. I treasure it in my heart. I listen attentively and try to understand it. And that's how we follow the wisdom road. And that's what I'm hoping you'll learn as you do your lesson and you use inductive study. That it takes effort, but God's wisdom is priceless. Now Solomon says, if you do this, then if you search and seek and receive and pay attention to the words of wisdom, then, verse 5, and in verses 5 through 11, it's telling you the then you're going to get God. See, wisdom hard won is wisdom hard given. You're going to get more of God. You're going to grow in that intimate relationship with God, deeper knowledge of God, and He's going to give you wisdom. He's going to give you wisdom. Verse 6, for the Lord gives wisdom. So we're going to know God more, and that is going to show you how to live. To know God deeper and to live differently. And one of the key words in this section, benefits of knowing God and living differently, the benefit of wisdom is the protective power of wisdom. Wisdom protects your path. Look at the words in verse 7. Wisdom, he is a shield to those who walk in integrity. Verse 8, guarding the paths of justice, and he preserves the way of his godly ones. And in verse 11, discretion will guard you. Understanding will watch over you. You see, God is actively working with his wisdom to guard you and protect you and preserve you along the path of wisdom in all the things that will come up and try and take you off the path of wisdom. And so we see in this next section how to follow the wisdom road. In verses 12 through 22, we see the protective power of wisdom, because Solomon goes on to say that wisdom will deliver you, it will protect you from these two tempters in this section. He shows two tempters, and they are the crooked man in verse 12. So wisdom will deliver you from the evil way, from the man who speaks perverse things, from those who leave the path of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness. From the crooked man, it will deliver you from the crooked man. And in verse 16, to deliver you from the strange woman, from the adulteress who flatters with her words. Now, these aren't the only things that tempt you to lead you off the path of wisdom, but I do think that they're kind of two things, two strong things. The false words of the crooked man, false words, distorted truth that lead us away from the path of wisdom. And the adulteress, or maybe you could say the path of false affections, all those false affections that lead us away from the path of wisdom. So Solomon is saying wisdom will deliver you from temptation. It will guard you from temptations. You see, temptations take you off the wisdom road. See, the evil man's road, it is crooked, verse 15. His paths are crooked. His ways are devious, verse 13. The path is dark. This is the wrong path, and wisdom will keep you, deliver you from this path. The path of the strange woman, or the adulteress, or wrong affections, it is a path that in verse 18, her tracks lead to the dead. Her house sinks down to death. You see, this path is sinking. It's vanishing. It's missing true life. It's missing life to the fullest. It's empty. And it says in verse 22, you'll be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be uprooted from it. You see, wisdom keeps you on the right path. So how does wisdom deliver you? How does wisdom deliver you? You see, wisdom's chief aim of empowering and protecting you in verse 21 is so you will walk in the way of good men, that you will walk in the paths of righteousness, that you walk in integrity, that you do good and do right. And I love how it says that you will be able to discern the right road. And it is a path of righteousness and justice and equity. This is walking. This is how wisdom delivers you. You walk in righteousness and goodness and justice and equity. And not only that, it says, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. You see, you have a whole new set of affections. You have a new set of things that you love and that you're following. You're following wisdom and wisdom's words and all those false words. You understand that the words of the crooked man are false words, and the words of the adulteress are just flattering words. They're false. And you see the true character and the warning signs of disaster. Now, in conclusion, let's look at the last part, verse 21 here. You see, because not only is wisdom protecting you from evil, wisdom is showing you the way home. The way home, like Dorothy wanted to find the way home. You see, verse 21, for the upright will live in the land, and the blameless will remain in it. See, those who follow the wisdom road are the children of wisdom. They will dwell in the land. And you know what this means? It means that you are home, that wisdom abides in you. It lives in you. The promised land is the promise of God's presence forever, now and forever. And wherever God is, and you're dwelling with him, it's a place of rest. It's a place of promise. It's a place of refreshment. It's full of spiritual riches. Home is where you're fully loved and fully known. It's abundant life. It's the best life. It's the satisfied life, the thriving life. Wisdom is saying that you are fully home when you are at home in him, in his presence, in wisdom. He is the source of life. Follow the wisdom road, and you will be home now and forever. And just like Dorothy said, there is no place like home. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.